Liberal siding with fascists, kind of the oldest trick in the book for them. I don't think every single liberal that is doing that because they are like totally aware, and they're doing that because they just like genuinely want fucking death and destruction for Cuba. They want to punish Cuba because it's communist. Like, I think most people have just been taught wrong. That's it. They've just been duped. I think a lot of you fail to comprehend that the average American doesn't think about this shit at all. And if they've ever like thought about it, even for a brief moment, they most likely got propagandized into believing that like Cuba is a scary, dangerous place. And that's the reason why we have to have these sanctions. And or even if they like dig a little bit deeper into the sanctions, they probably think, oh, why does Cuba have a right to trade with America? If they hate America, they can live outside of the United States of America, not understanding the full scope of what these like sanctions do, right? And so it's always good to be well equipped. It's always good to be, except Camilla. Yes, I don't think Camila Cabello is that propagandized. I think she definitely has been propagandized. She's, she's been indoctrinated clearly, because like her recent stances are far more woke, right? Like, in spite of the murky past that she has, saying the N-word or whatever, she has been like anti-ICE, pro-Palestine, all this shit. But when it comes to Cuba, because of her personal development, it's very clear that she's pro-State Department. Okay, was Camilla even using her heritage to say, I know better, just seemed like an uninformed person talking? Thought it was the other people that was saying she's an expert? No, she is saying, she is using it. She's saying she has family in Cuba still that are fucking suffering under the corrupt regime. And it is absolutely propaganda. Whether she is aware that she's doing propaganda or not doesn't fucking matter. At the peak of this embargo, at the peak of this blockade, where it is so ruthless, so fucking cruel, that even the New York Times, man, even the New York Times is like, this is unacceptable. Like, I'm sorry. If you got the New York Times saying the U.S. blockade is strangling Cuba, okay, without, like, look at this. They're not saying the communist scary government and its corruption is actually killing Cubans. They're literally just saying America is strangling Cuba right now, because it's the truth, okay? That's down to the goddamn bone. At that point, you can't be trying to fucking put the toothpaste back in the tube. The most ironic part of this blockade is that it's so old that the CIA documents explaining the true intentions of the blockade were already declassified. They knew it would cause severe scarcity. Skip to bullet point number 9. Yeah, here it is. Effect of the blockade in Cuba. A total blockade of Cuba, which the U.S. could impose if it were willing to accept the heavy cost of its standing, prestige, and alliances, would present the Castro government with formidable problems. The more than $500 million worth of equipment, supplies, and food now coming into the country annually would be cut off, and Cuba would be thrown back into its own resources. A blockade would quickly bring the economy to a virtual standstill. Food shortages are already marked. Petroleum supplies could be stretched out to meet priority needs for only a few months. Many manufactured items, like most medicines, would quickly become unavailable. Most industrial and manufacturing activities would have to be sharply curtailed or stopped. A total blockade would cut off food imports, which now account for about 1/3 of present caloric intake, through sugar, citrus, fruits, and other foodstuffs presently exported would make up part of the loss. Strict rationing and careful reallocation of available nutrition would be necessary, but the country probably would not starve. The regime would count on worldwide opinion and the actions of the UN and elsewhere described above to force the U.S. to abandon its blockade before the international situation became desperate. Okay? This was approved for release in the year 2005. A confidential CIA report, Central Intelligence Agency report, Office of National Estimates, from the 23rd of April, 1962. Okay? It's fucking so old that there are chatters in my chat that are younger than the declassification point. That's how long this goddamn country has been trying to fuck over Cuba. Do you understand how insane it is, by the way? No one gives a shit because they don't know. They don't know. That's why I said the moment that you learn about what America has done to Cuba will be an eye-opening experience, okay? When you learn the actual history of the Cuban Revolution, when you learn America's design for Cuba leading up to the Cuban Revolution, okay? Blowback Season 2, by the way. Shouts out to the Blowback Boys. Highly, highly recommend you listen to this podcast, okay? But the moment when you learn about what has taken place in Cuba leading up to the Batista regime and the undemocratic nature of the Batista regime, of course, and then the Cuban revolution that took place afterwards, and then what the American government did to Cuba to punish it, to stop it, to destabilize it, to destroy it, to undermine the goals, specifically to undermine the ideology, the threat of a good example that Cuba presented was far too scary for America, okay? When you learn what we have done to this island, to these people, it's an eye-opening experience, and you can never go back. From that point on, you're like, this is fucking, we are the great evil. We are the great Satan in the world. Okay? Here's a brief 60-year economic embargo briefer from Al Jazeera.
The disintegrating buildings of Cuba's once magnificent capital, a reflection of a crumbling economy in what was once regarded as the jewel of the Caribbean. It's as though the country had been frozen in time, back to 1962, to when the United States declared an economic, financial, and diplomatic embargo against its tiny communist neighbor. It was at the height of the Cold War. 75-year-old Rolando Ignacio Ruiz was 15 then, just 3 years after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. 60 years later, he laments that the embargo is still in place.
They should have removed it long time ago. If after all this time the United States hasn't achieved anything, it certainly won't now. It only hurts our people, but the government remains in place.
He's not wrong. The world's longest economic embargo has certainly hurt ordinary Cubans, limiting access to medicine, cheap U.S. imports, technology, and credit through a U.S. dollar-dominated financial system. Washington's purpose has always been to modify or force out Cuba's one-party communist system, but clearly it's failed miserably.
On the contrary, in Cuba's case, the embargo has become a fundamental component for the survival of the Cuban state and its current government. The tougher the sanctions, the easier it is to accuse the United States of violating sovereignty, destabilizing the country, and organizing rebellion.
That is exactly what happened when economic hardships and restrictions on freedom of expression exploded into unprecedented mass demonstrations last year. Referring to 60 years of economic embargo, President Miguel Díaz-Canel alluded to sanctions against Cuba's allies, Venezuela and Nicaragua.
This criminal and immoral policy imposed systematically against us is a massive violation of the
I'm 28 years old, grew up in Florida, lived in California for over a decade. I'm just now learning this from you. This curriculum in Florida taught me all the propaganda. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Also, Americans don't realize that the U.S. colonial desires for Cuba exist long before the Spanish-American War. Jefferson famously wrote of his desires to turn it into a colony. Yeah. We worked to fucking purge the Spanish colonialists so that we could overtake it. It was in the initial Cuban Constitution that we have a final say on whatever the fuck they do. Okay? Cuba is another possible Puerto Rico situation for America. Thomas Jefferson, the U.S. annexation of Cuba, and more. The United States have long tortured relationship with Cuba, including Thomas Jefferson's imperial designs on the island. As Clay travels to Cuba this week to lead a cultural tour, he reflects on a bit of forgotten history between the U.S. and the island nation 90 miles from Key West, Florida. Yeah. It's just it's utterly ridiculous. We have literally used this island that is bountiful with its resources as a plantation for sugar and a holdover state basically for fucking casinos and hotels for our mafia and our, you know, labor unions back, especially at a time when they were, you know, directly mobbed the fuck up. That's what it is. And there have been instances where like some of the different aspects of the mafia, which again may or may not be aligned with the CIA with regular frequency, look to the island to use it as like a launching pad for the heroin trade. Like it's always been a major, it's always played a major role in Cuban development, or rather a major setback in Cuban development, like gangsterismo. It's funny that here in Brazil, we watch Michael Moore docs in school, and in the US, you guys are completely clueless about Cuba. I know. Michael Moore is the fucking legend. I always forget people didn't take honors or AP history classes and don't know the OG false flag was Cuba. Yeah. Like, for example, people talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Why did that happen? First of all, I will always say this, okay? Regardless of his revisionist nature, Khrushchev was a fucking lion, okay? Khrushchev was a fucking lion. Putting nukes in Cuba, excellent move, okay? That's number one. Number two, as far as the Cuban Missile Crisis goes, it was a defensive posture from the USSR after America put missile bases in Turkey, okay? So, you know, just pointing that out. I know many Americans don't understand that. Many Americans are not taught that, but like that started with the Turkish missile crisis, if you want to call it that. Okay? And it ended up allowing Cuba to develop and have sovereignty. Thank God, for as long as the USSR existed. Now, of course, sometimes you take a fucking L when you know, take the nukes out of your country. Don't give up the nukes. Same with fucking Ukraine. Same with Cuba. Why would you give up the nukes? Why would you do that, Fidel Castro? I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna put all the blame in the hands of a person that was, you know, trying to do his best, but pretty crazy. This is what happens when you give up the nukes, okay? One of the rarest Fidel L's. Had to learn all this on my own for real. Shout out to Mr. Beat and YouTube. Chatter was alluding to the USS Maine, I think. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so, I mean, there are many instances where, like, America has moved on its design with Cuba. Throughout, you know, Cuban history, throughout Cuban development, it's impossible for America not to have such investment in Cuba. It's too close. It's just incredibly close. The proximity between Cuba and America is literally shorter than the proximity between Taiwan and China. Okay, notwithstanding all the other like micro islands of Taiwan, because if you factor that in, then like Taiwan and China are basically, you know, swimming distance. But Cuba is closer to the United States of America with 90 nautical miles than Taiwan is to China, which is, I think, 100 miles, right? Let's blame the Maine on Spain. So we blame the Maine on Spain. Yeah. So these are things you have to factor in. And there are a million different ways that America has tried to destabilize the island, tried to create economic uncertainty, tried to punish the Cuban population, to create destabilization, things that we do in Iran, things that we've done in Syria, things that we've done all around the world where we have an interest in an investment in like destabilizing and, you know, doing regime change. Specifically in Latin America, we do this with regular frequency. Same thing that we did in Venezuela as well. And in spite of all of that, I would say that the Cuban government has been incredibly resilient and all of the like repression that people point to inside of Cuba stems from that, right? It stems from being under constant fucking economic and sometimes direct warfare with the largest imperial power on the planet. It's fucking ridiculous. Americans will be like, why don't they have free speech? First of all, they literally have better free speech protections than most of the other countries that are declared foreign adversaries. Okay, that's number one. And number two, of course, they have fucking repression and have laws around treason, for example, and will every now and then engage in repressive acts because they're fucking under attack by America. There's no comparison that I can make here in the United States of America that will help you fucking comprehend this, because there's no comparative superpower that is that much more powerful than the United States of America, as the United States of America is to Cuba.
Our top story, the Supreme Court's rebuke of a pillar of President Trump's economic agenda. In a 6-3 ruling issued on Friday, the justices struck down tariffs the president levied on nearly every country under an emergency powers law. Joining in the...
Dude, this is not real. You guys are getting duped by a fucking fake Twitter account. Jesus Christ. Literally thousands of chatters. I don't think this is real, man. Please. It's a parody account. Why are you guys like this?
The majority are two justices, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, who were appointed to the High Court by President Trump in his first term. In the majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote, quote, "The framers did not vest any part of the taxing power in the executive branch."
The latest CBS News polling finds
one of the funniest revelations from this, by the way, or not even a revelation necessarily for us, but like one of the funniest admissions here was Donald Trump coming out on stage yesterday at the press conference and being like, I can literally destroy nations if I want to, but I can't just tax them. Like, I can't just do a little entry fee. What the fuck is wrong with you guys? He's like, I can make them economically destitute. I can make them starve if I want to. I can bomb them if I want to, but I can't ask them a little fucking fee. He said that straight up. He said the quiet part out loud.
nearly 2/3 of Americans are opposed to tariffs on imported goods. President Trump called the ruling a disgrace. And this morning, he said he's pivoting to a plan B. Willie James Inman is at the White House with the very latest. Good morning, Willie James.
Vlad, good morning to you. President Trump offered fierce criticism for Supreme Court justices who ruled against his sweeping tariffs, but the decision drove the president to announce a new plan using a different authority.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country.
Following the Supreme Court's ruling striking down President Trump's use of emergency authority to levy sweeping tariffs, he announced a new plan for a blanket 10% import tax on global goods.
And that's taking place. That's a lot of money coming into our country. And then during that period of about 5 months, we are doing the various investigations necessary to put fair tariffs or tariffs, period, on other countries.
But the tariff is limited in scope, expiring in 5 months unless it is extended by Congress.
Why wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to
push tariffs.
I have the right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs, and it's all been...
Yeah, it's 15% now. Remember yesterday when I told you? Remember yesterday when I was like, oh, he did a 10% tariff, and I was like, no, he's gonna up it again. He can max out at 15, and because some chatters were like, I thought you said it's 15%, and I was like, no, he'll go there, and I fucking called it. Yeah, the tariffs just got 5% higher. He's a baby. He's a fucking baby. He's a baby brain. He's like a child. Okay, that's why he was holding out to have additional impact the next day. And I didn't even think he would drop the 5% extra so close to the initial tariff argument. I thought he would just like wait until like some country pissed him off to be like, well, now it's going to be 15%. But it turns out he's just mad. He's just mad today. So we decided to max out on the tariff. He's going to lower it next week when the markets tank. I don't even know if the markets respond to this tariff shit anymore, man. I don't even know. I don't know what the markets are up to, okay? I feel like the markets are like, whatever, fuck it, we ball, you know? No matter what happens, they win regardless.
Approved by Congress, so there's no reason to do it.
But many Democratic lawmakers say otherwise.
Even these justices who Trump nominated, even these judges who were way to the right, the law is so clear it's hard for them to avoid it. The amazing thing is how the other three didn't. But it's Congress that's always had the power on tariffs. And right now, I would urge my Republican colleagues, some of them don't like the tariffs. We've had some bipartisan legislation.
Most of them don't.
The government raked in more than $130 billion in revenue from tariffs since April of last year, according to data from Customs and Border Protection. Scott Lincecum of the Libertarian Cato Institute says don't expect lower prices right away. He also adds the ruling has set up a potential legal fight for businesses.
I think the ruling is really more a victory for the rule of law than it is for free trade.
How long do you think it's going to take for them to maybe see refunds or get their money back?
I think at least 6 months, but it could go on for
Yeah, this was also another spectacular moment of you will get nothing, you will own nothing, you will get nothing, and you'll be happy. What's taking place here with the refunds conversation is very funny because it's, J.D. Pondon, permanent first world genocide. I wish no harm to the American ruling class. My real enemy is the American people. Because Donald Trump, the money president, as quo pro quid says, Donald Trump, the money president, has somehow managed to make consumers pay higher prices while widening the trade gap and has now instigated a large sell-off of dollars because he may be forced to refund somewhere around 0.5% of the U.S.'s total GDP. And guess what? That refund is not even going to the people who paid the higher prices because the higher prices are already baked in, right? Inflation came in to readjust to the entry fees that they were paying, right? So corporations already made you carry that burden to a certain degree. And now on top of that, they will sue the government to get the refunds. You're not going to get the refunds. They're going to get the refunds. We're winning. We're winning so much. Matthew Ryan, the head of market strategy at global financial services firm Ebury, noted that there was a sell-off of dollars immediately after the ruling. He said the move probably reflects heightened fiscal concerns as markets fret that the massive tariff refunds could create a significant U.S. budget shortfall, a higher deficit, and an increase in debt issuance. It's fucking incredible. Not only did we, the consumer, pay for the tariffs with higher costs because, again, as we talked about over and over again, the entry fees would make things more expensive because companies are not going to eat away at their profit margins. They're going to immediately raise prices, right? They're going to be like, okay, we're paying the tariffs. And then in order to make up for the additional price that we're paying in the entry fee, we are going to raise the price of these goods. So they did that. So you paid for those tariffs, right? This is how regressive taxation works. This is how tariffs work. So now that the tariffs are rendered illegal by the Supreme Court, at least the ones that he was wielding around like a fucking madman, 100% tariffs, 200% tariffs, whatever the fuck, right? Those tariffs, he's going to probably have to pay back to the corporations. So they made the profit, they kept the profit margins, and on top of that, they're going to make the tariff refunds as well. There's also obviously all the people that created financial tools around this that will make money as well. Wall Street will also make money from this as well. Some of the people that bought on the debt from the companies are going to make money from this. What we thought Cantor Fitzgerald was potentially doing, Howard Lutnick's sons were doing, which again, we don't know if Howard Lutnick and his sons are actually doing this or not. They revealed to Semaphore that they did not engage in the purchase of this debt for pennies on the dollar. So we'll see. We'll see. But people are going to be making money here. And trust me, you are, as always, holding the fucking bag. Pretty good TikTok that sums up what you're talking about in a pretty easily digestible way. Thank you so much for that, chatter. Take a fucking day off. Fuck you. 96% tariff burden was placed on the consumers. Companies paid 4% for it, and they will make back the 100% of the tariff refunds. They're making double the money now.
Trump confirming that the US is considering a limited strike on Iran. This comes after giving it an ultimatum to agree to a nuclear deal in less than 2 weeks from now, warning if it doesn't, then, quote, really bad things will happen. Iran and the US have held 2 rounds of indirect talks now. They're due to hold a third. But Vice President J.D. Vance saying Iran has yet to even acknowledge President Trump's red lines. Gio?
So, Ian, what is this all about? What does the president want Iran to do? And are we talking about boots on the ground here?
Yeah.
Why would they call it a limited strike? Because no one cares, honestly. That's part of the reason. Like, it just doesn't matter. They're just making shit up.
All good questions. The US is pushing for 3 things. Stopping Iran's nuclear program, which Iran insists is purely for peaceful purposes. Secondly, a curb on its ballistic missiles. And lastly, an ending support for militant groups in the region, groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon. Despite the ongoing diplomacy, though, we're now seeing this kind of huge amassing of a military presence by the U.S. in the region. New satellite images show the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier sailing into the Mediterranean. We know that more than 100 cargo planes, refueling tankers, and fighter jets also heading here, and the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is already here in the Middle East. All told, some 35,000 US troops across the region. But no, certainly for now, there is no suggestion of boots on the ground. I think if this happens, it's most likely to be an aerial campaign.
And I guess the next question is, what is Iran saying about this?
Yeah, I mean, fairly belligerent response from Iran. It's saying, look, we do want diplomacy, we do want peace.
Thanks,
but
Chatter.
it's also standing up and saying, look, if there is some kind of attack, it's ready to respond. It's saying that it'll respond decisively. Crucially, I think it's warning that all US bases, facilities and assets across this region would be, quote, legitimate targets. And also, I think in a sign of the anxiety about the possibility of Iranian retaliation to any attack, US officials confirming overnight that a number of US troops may be
All right, let's get back to Iran.
moved out of their bases in the region. Janae?
All right, Ian, panel for us there in Tel Aviv. Our thanks to you.
Trump warned Friday that limited strikes on Iran are possible. The president is pressuring Iran's government to dismantle its nuclear program. The warning comes as the United States ramps up its firepower in the Middle East. On Friday, the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier and 3 other warships entered the Mediterranean Sea. There are currently 13 U.S. Navy vessels in the Middle East, including another carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. It is the largest military buildup in the region since the Iraq War in 2003.
Yeah, the Trump administration is prepared to consider an Iranian proposal that allows Iran token nuclear enrichment if it leaves no possible path to nuclear weapon, a senior U.S. official told me. A source familiar with the talks told Axios that both Omani and Qatari mediators told Iran and the U.S. in recent days that any deal must enable both sides to claim victory and, if possible, also be something that Gulf countries and Israel can live with. The problem is Israel has a totally different approach to this, okay? Israel's approach to the subject, Israel's approach to the situation is we want to destabilize Iran. We don't want them to have any ballistic missile production, or at the very least, we want to limit their ballistic missile launching capabilities to just their own backyard, I guess, and not Israel. Okay, that's it. That is Israel's approach. And unfortunately for us, we will do Israel's bidding, okay? That's just the fucking reality. We are doing this for Israel. Make no mistake. There is no American design here. It's mostly just Israel running the show right now. American design happens to be aligned with Israel's interests or giving Israel whatever it wants. That's the reason why we are encircling Iran. That's the reason why we're talking about bombing Iran. That's the reason why we're having a conversation with Iran about limiting their striking capabilities, because we care first and foremost about Israeli security. That's the reason why we're sending more surveillance assets to Iran this time around, a lot more than we did previously. Like all of those big fucking planes with the radars on top of them. The reason why we're sending those planes more than we did last time around is because in the 12-day war, Israel got fucking pummeled, okay? In the 12-day war, when there was a tit-for-tat bombing campaign that took place, Israel got its shit pushed in. The AWACS planes. Yes. No matter how hard they postured after the 12-day war and talked about how fantastic of a success it was or whatever, how they destroyed Iran and destroyed the Iranian nuclear capabilities, all this stuff. The reason why America's bringing in even more assets than last time around is because they want to defend Israel, because Iran is going to strike back against Israel. Some of the American assets will be struck as well, but first and foremost, our attention and our interest is defending Israel.
The brother of the king.
Let's get back
being
to the
driven
Epstein
back
files.
home in one of his Range Rovers after
I love these photos. They're so fucking stupid and so funny.
his arrest. Technically, Andrew could one day still be king. How
I gotta pee.
can this be? The nation may well ask, as police continue searching 30-room Royal Lodge. Well, the government has said today it's now thinking of removing Andrew from the line of succession. At the moment, he is just 8 places from the throne, behind Prince William, William's 3 children, Prince Harry and his 2 children. Removing Andrew would require new legislation, plus agreement from 14 other Commonwealth countries who still hold the UK monarch as head of state.
There is just no conceivable way that Andrew could ever be king. There would be uproar, and doesn't the current king know it? But removing Andrew from the line of succession isn't entirely straightforward, despite the severity of the allegations against him, which he denies.
Andrew was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Maximum penalty, life in prison. Back in 1649, when King Charles I was found guilty of treason, his head was chopped off.
Good afternoon, Your Majesty. Do you have any reaction to the arrest of your brother, sir?
This King Charles, Andrew's big brother, has now said nobody is above the law. And with questions about what palace insiders knew, even the king accepts there must be a thorough police investigation.
Who knew what, when in the palace circles, and I think that the pressure for answers on that and documents to be released about his time as trade envoy, those questions are going to become quite deafening.
MPs on the Business and Trade Committee will meet on Tuesday to discuss a possible inquiry into trade envoys. But what about removing Andrew from succession? The process is unwieldy. The government's already promised legislation to defrock Peter Mandelson from the Lords. Adding an Andrew amendment might be the easiest solution. Though, given the vanishingly low chance of it ever being needed, do we really need to bother?
I would say we do need to do it. We can need to do it in the most efficient and quick way as possible. I am sympathetic hugely. I'm the chair of the Health and Social Care Select Committee. Would I rather spend my time arguing over, you know, the minute chance that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor might become king one day, or the NHS? Goodness me, the NHS 99.9% of the time. But, you know, we are a grown-up parliament. We can do this. We will find a way through.
This royal watcher outside Buckingham Palace today had an alternative suggestion.
But can he not just disinherit himself to the crown? Can he just say, I don't, you know, come clean, be honest, just say, I'll put my hands up. I'll take myself off the line of lineage or whatever.
It is in truth a little more complicated than that. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor hasn't responded in detail to the many allegations against him, but he has previously denied wrongdoing.
Detectives carrying out the complex search of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's former residence in Windsor, the vast 30-room property he called home for more than 20 years. Officers believed to be looking for proof that he passed on confidential information to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein when he was serving as Britain's trade envoy. The police investigation is intensifying, now urging the former Prince's protection officers to come forward with any information about what they saw or heard during their time of service. Authorities also say they are working with
British government be like, listen, the pedophilia and the sex trafficking of minors is something we can forgive, but trade secrets? Not on my watch. How dare you, my good sir, my good pedophile. My good paedophile, sir. Just a little bit of noncery is a part of what it takes to be a prince, and maybe one day a king. But trading trade secrets with Americans, well, that is unacceptable.
US law enforcement to determine whether airports in the UK were used to traffic young women for sex. Andrew was arrested on the King's private estate in Sandringham on Thursday morning, held for nearly 11 hours, then released without charge. The viral image showing him in the back of a car, leaving the police station. The King's brother is the first senior royal arrested in almost 400 years.
The focus has shifted a lot, I think, onto this wider question for the royal family about who knew what and if anyone knew anything else. Generally, wider questions are very dangerous for the royal family right now about privilege.
Sources telling ABC News the King had no prior warning of Andrew's arrest, releasing a statement writing,
Bro, if I was Turning Point USA right now, I'd be like, this is the most watched viewership of all time. We fucking killed it, bro. More people want to tune in to me than Bad Bunny. You know what I mean? If I was a fucking dumbass like they are.
What now follows is the full, fair and proper process, adding that authorities will have his full and wholehearted support and cooperation. The royal family keeping calm and carrying on with their planned public engagements, even amid intensifying questions from reporters.
Good afternoon, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, how are you feeling after your brother's arrest?
Andrew arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, believed to stem from the most recent Epstein files released by the Department of Justice, which raises questions about whether Andrew shared confidential information with Epstein. Andrew addressing their friendship in that now infamous BBC interview in 2019.
Do you regret the whole friendship with Epstein?
Still not. And the reason being is that the people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn, either by him or because of him, were actually very useful.
Oh.
Do I regret the fact that
Yes. He's giving incredible tax advice.
That he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming, yes.
Unbecoming? He was a sex offender.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being polite, in the sense that he was a sex offender.
He claimed he cut ties with Epstein in 2010, after Epstein had been released from prison. But these emails indicate that's not true. In 2011, Epstein writing to Andrew, "The press is piling on me in the States. Nothing to do, just want to make sure you are okay." Andrew allegedly writing back, "I'm just as concerned for you. Don't worry about me. It would seem we are in this together and we'll have to rise above it. Keep in close touch and we will play some more soon." Andrew has strenuously denied any wrongdoing. And the British government is now discussing introducing laws to remove Andrew from the line of succession. Remember, right now he is 8th in line to the throne.
Anyway, I got to show you this crazy North Korea piece that came out of South China Morning Post. Holy fuck, dude. They have actually developed a lot more than I thought.
A new subway station.
Except it's gross. What they did to the subway station in Pyongyang is fucking disgusting, and it's a crime against humanity. I don't know why they did that, but everything else is incredibly impressive. Holy fuck, get a nuke. It is 100%. It's nuke time. It is nuke time, baby. I'm telling you right now, it is so obvious that no development can come in the third world. No development can come if you're in the periphery without developing nuclear sovereignty. The nuclear doctrine is fucking real.
Beach resort and a new downtown with so many skyscrapers, it's being called Pyonghatan. North Korea is spending big despite international sanctions on the authoritarian country. Pyongyang has been the site of multiple redevelopment projects in recent years, changing portions of this once gritty landscape into a modern city. The latest sign of this building boom are these 80-story skyscrapers.
이 현재 제일 높은 살림집들로는 수도의 동쪽 관문에 자리 잡은 성악.
North Korea recently liberalizes internet access. Why do you think you got so many viewers today? Dude, the way things are going, oh my God, dude, it's fucking nutty. This is nutty as hell, dude. Is money coming from trade with China and Russia because China helps, but not that much? Yes. Money's coming from Russia. Money's coming from China. Money's coming from cryptocurrency schemes that these guys engage in. And they are, I mean, they're cooking. 80-story skyscraper in John Wee Street, which is at the northern gateway of the capital.
The flats are part of a plan laid out in 2021 by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to construct 50,000 new housing units in Pyongyang. The 5-year project promised to improve the living conditions of residents in Pyongyang.
Now normal workers are living in those skyscrapers. And in future, together with the changing appearance of the fatherland day by day, our people will lead more cultured and happier lives in newly built streets and houses.
North Korean state.
Bro, domestic repression aside, which is not inconsequential, I'm sorry, but if you cannot look at this in awe, in spite of everything that we have done to fucking North Korea, in spite of the embargo, the blockade, the fucking famine in the 90s, after the dissolution of the USSR, which unironically destroyed North Korea's lifeline, you got one country that, by way of war communism, siege communism, was able to develop, but in the absence of a nuke, turned into Cuba. You got another country that went and developed nuclear arms, developed the first layer of assurance by putting an artillery brigade directly targeting, directly aiming at South Korea, okay? And then on top of that, went and made a nuke and then worked on the delivery systems. Like, it's very clear. Bots are back, by the way. Cholima is here. Turns out all the North Koreans are back on my side again, right as I'm talking about it. It is not like, I'm sorry, this is not glazing or anything like that, but it is fucking mind-boggling to me that a country so fucking poor and so distraught, a country that withstood a fucking genocide, could get to this level, dude. How is this? How does this not make you mad as an American citizen? How does this not fucking piss you off? Where you look at this shit and you're like, if they can do it, why the fuck can't we?
Media announced in late 2025.
I'm sorry, my North Korea apology form is in the fucking mail, okay? For years and years, I thought they were being fucking insane for hyper-focusing on nuclear arms and working on ICBM delivery mechanisms. I was wrong. You live and you learn. You live and you fucking learn. I was wrong. My apologies to the fucking Kim dynasty. My apologies to everybody involved. I thought, I fell for the libtard fucking propaganda. I literally did. I was like, why are they fucking focusing on this nuclear arms so much? Like, I understand nuclear sovereignty. I get it. But the last 2 decades of action to nations of the global south have 100% convinced me that the HasanAbi nuclear doctrine for sovereignty and nation building is 100% true. That's it. Nothing else to say here. You look at other countries that tried to do socialism by way of reform. Latin American countries where they democratically elected people into positions of power. Even countries that actually had a successful communist revolution, a successful revolution where, they were able to build communism in their country through a vanguard style system, and then they didn't develop nuclear arms. Cuba is the greatest example of a country that has survived in spite of everything else, and yet look at the situation in Cuba versus look at the situation in the DPRK, okay? It is fucking insane. It is fucking insane that in spite of all the sanctions, the embargo, these motherfuckers are still putting up skyscrapers, okay? In spite of the genocide, in spite of the famine, in spite of not even having a single moment where the Western superpowers ever fucking where the Western superpowers ever dialed back on their embargo. Yeah, DPR Korea apology forum to Marshal Kim Jong-un. Reason for behavior: the media convinced me they were crazy and evil. I didn't know they have never recognized Israel. I don't know history or geopolitics. I refuse to accept America as imperialist. I believe Yeonmi Park. I will hereby respect North Korea, and I will not talk down to a truly anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist nation. Okay, I knew all of that other stuff, but that's funny. That is fucking insane, dude. I'm apologizing to the true Korea. I am. It is so mind-boggling. How can you be another country in the periphery right now in the global south and look to this and not go, oh my God, what the fuck were we doing? We really needed to get the fucking nukes. We need to get the nukes out ASAP. I do want to give another take on the situation with Mike Huckabee, because a lot of people have issued their statements, condemnations on why it happens to be Tucker Carlson that's doing this stuff, and it's like,
say it's a lower number,
but because respected mainstream news anchors like Jake Tapper and Dana Bash have spent more than 2 years parroting Israeli talking points and demonizing or ignoring pro-Palestinian voices, we now have to depend on people like Tucker Carlson to offer basic journalistic pushback.
Israel goes to links that no other country, including ours, goes to in the middle of an urban war, and yet Israel ended up with fewer civilian deaths in an urban war than any urban war of record.
You said you didn't know how many civilian deaths there were, so how can you say that?
If you took Gaza's numbers, Hamas's numbers,
you said you don't know what the numbers are.
We don't.
You just told me that. Then how can you say it's a lower number?
But if you took the numbers that they reported, which is like 50,000, 25,000 of those were actual warriors. How many civilians? If you took all of their numbers,
range from 120 to 78. Those are the ones I just read. I don't know if that's real. I don't know either. I'm asking you.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, those numbers I've not heard, have not read. The numbers that I think are more reportable are somewhere in the 60,000 range.
Where do those come from?
From the Gaza Health Ministry,
but
which
you
is
said those
Hamas.
were invalid numbers.
I think they are. I don't think that they're accurate, but I'm saying let's
You're
just
saying
assume
they're inaccurate, but they prove that Israel's doing a great job?
Let's assume that the most widespread numbers, the largest numbers that have been reported out of Gaza by Hamas,
yes,
let's assume they're true. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they are true, but assume they're true. Let's just take them at their word. Then you still have a lower number of civilians killed than in any urban warfare environment in modern history. Fact.
It's bullshit.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
What are you comparing it to?
To any urban warfare.
Name one.
Iraq.
Where in
Afghanistan.
Iraq? Where in Iraq? Where in Afghanistan? There aren't many urban areas in Afghanistan. I don't think there was any fighting in urban areas in Afghanistan.
Kabul?
I don't know. Were there pitched battles in Kabul over long periods of time? I don't.
20 years.
In Kabul? I don't.
Throughout all of Afghanistan.
But what were those rates?
We looked at those rates yesterday. He's straight up lying. Like, it doesn't even come close. Iraq is a better example that you can use. And even in Iraq, it does not fucking come close to Israel's casualty ratings. Okay. Like, if you look at the total number, of course, like, America obviously killed a lot more in Iraq over the course of 20 years. But if you look at like Fallujah, for example, okay, if you look at Fallujah, the American civilian to combatant, like enemy combatant ratio was significantly lower than Israel's Gaza civilian to enemy combatant ratio. Israel's ratios for child death, like child fatalities, is equivalent to the Holocaust. Now, in totality, of course, there's a lot more children that were killed in the Holocaust, just Jewish victims of the Holocaust, by the way, from the 6 million number. If you look at the Nazi Germany casualty percentage, like Nazi Germany child murder percentage. The only other historical event where Israel's death and destruction campaign is Israel's genocide in Gaza. The only place where the ratios for child murder is identical is the Holocaust. It's not even a question. Gaza death toll for the first 16 months of war far higher than reported, says peer-reviewed study. Lancet Global Health Research suggests more than 75,000 killed in the period, 25,000 more than announced at the time. It's just not, there's no comparison. There's nothing. You can't compare it to anything. It's just genocide.